So as I said, I went over a couple of situations that had happened, um, and I mean what I said regarding those situations. But as I've said, I made my decision when it comes to the first person I was in interaction with, and just going forward, it is it is what it is with everybody else, but. Um, I could say there were a lot of pockets where I was greatly inspired by people, and at times, you can miss out on things, and I think that's what kind of grieved me during that whole ordeal. It was like, as I've said, the girl that I went to high school with, I was, mom had told me about her. Now, I had been friends with her. Actually, no, I added her a few years ago, after I had cut off a whole bunch of friends, and that's why I was really confused about a whole lot of things once the marriage thing came around, because I'm like, I never expected us to reconnect in any type of way. And so during some time last year, it was just like because I didn't want to get things serious. As I said, like, I really had feelings for the girl who had began helping me, and I really had feelings. I really took a liking to the younger one who had started helping me. But then, as I've said, my mom told me about that situation, and then I reached out to her because girl, she got motion in the city and different things. She, you know. She got motion pretty much, so I don't want to get into what she do. But I reached out to her. I was like, "Yeah, I see what you do. Such and such. I'm over here. I'll reference you for any opportunities if they looking for somebody or whatever." And from that moment, we would like probably send, like, it wasn't a lot of back and forth, but it was just. She noticed when I would go through things, and so she would post encouraging messages as well. It was like one time I had brought up that different people were accusing me of certain things, like I said, being abusive, different things like that. And she made a post saying, talking about people who actually know you, and I appreciated that because. Like, I've been around this girl for years. Like, she knows how I am. And very little has changed about my personality. A lot has changed about me, but as far as who I am essentially as a person, that hasn't changed. And I know people, get a sense of that. So, I think that's what even made her want to reach out to me in the first place. She could still read certain things about me, when we had seen each other in public and different things. But it's encouraging that even though I wasn't reaching out to her, even though I felt bad because, like I said, I'm trying to figure out a certain situation, and I didn't want to bring different people in and make it look worse than it already did. Because as I said, I didn't know what was really going on or who was who, but I know I started having, certain connections and certain feelings with people. And as I said, just making some of those decisions amplified different responses, as well as, different ministers, as I said, butting in. I noticed yesterday after I'm speaking, a minister from Canada who, for some reason, like, every time somebody says something, he says something. And he don't understand, like, bro, like, I've been dealing with this for years, like, before you even picked up on who I was. Maybe you knew who I was. I just figured out who you were because of your dealings with, as I said, the young male prophet who, I had recognized since 2020, maybe even before then. But even that, with all that being said, I don't like how people butt into to certain things and, try to play certain things on the people. Um, what really made me frustrated last year was seeing those things. Like, I'm like, well, this person is helping or this person is helping, but the only people that I knew that were genuine, as I've said, were different people that I actually tried to reach out to, that I talked to, um, and actually gave me responses, gave me, let me know that, okay, this is like, I see this happening. And so, I'm addressing this in this way. But a lot of them, as I've said, I had to move away from because it was like they wasn't seeing the wide scale of things. Like, and from my perspective, I believe a lot of people are lashing out still because of the different things around COVID and all of that stuff. And I know I keep bringing that stuff up, but I really think that people want to bury anybody who was saying those things during those times, bury who they are as a person. And it started. I wouldn't say it started with me, but um, because I was on the front lines and the more easier target, in my opinion, because the guy was